Hello, my name is Marla, and I thought marrying into a close-knit family would mean love, support, maybe even a little chaos during the holidays. But nothing like this. They didn't yell, they didn't slam doors, they just waited until I was deep enough in. Then they pounced. From now on, you'll hand over half your salary, my mother-in-law said, smiling, and around her, they all nodded, my husband included. Was I crazy? Or had I just been recruited into something I didn't sign up for? What kind of family plans your financial collapse before you even say, I do? I should have known the minute I stepped through the door that something wasn't right. It was the silence first, the kind that doesn't come from peace, but from planning. There was no music, no clatter from the kitchen, no laughter echoing through the hallway like there usually was when the Cades got together. Just chairs, arranged in a perfect circle. The temperature inside the house felt 5 degrees colder than outside, and Portland wasn't warm to begin with that evening. I had driven there after work, telling myself maybe I was overthinking Darian's strange tone when he'd said, "Mom wants us all to be there." The house smelled like cinnamon and lemon cleaner, not a single object out of place. Lorna's style, surgical in its presentation, like life was a catalog she curated and everyone else was expected to pose for. When I walked in, every pair of eyes turned toward me. Darian was seated already, not by the door to greet me, not standing, just sitting, smiling, but his eyes didn't lift. Callan, his brother, gave me a slight nod. Their cousins, aunt and uncle, they all sat quietly like a jury waiting to be summoned. Nobody offered me coffee, nobody even patted the seat next to them. I stood for a few seconds before I forced myself to smile and say, "Hey." "What's all this?" Lorna rose from her chair like a senator about to give a speech. Her red blouse was stiffly ironed, lips painted in a shade 2 tones too dark for her pale skin, but it was her expression that pulled everything into focus, satisfaction. "Your family now, Marla," she began, hands folded, chin lifted. "And in this family, we believe in sharing what we have. Fair is fair." I didn't say anything. I glanced at Darian. He still wasn't meeting my eyes. Then she said it. "From now on, you'll hand over half your salary each month. We've talked about it. It's only right." I blinked. Half of my salary. The words were said with the ease of someone ordering appetizers, not declaring an economic ambush. Callan nodded like this was gospel. Someone in the back even murmured, "We all chip in." I laughed, just a short, stunned burst that startled even me. "You're not serious." Darian finally looked at me. His voice was calm, too calm. "It's just money, babe." "We're all one unit. You make more than all of us. We just want to even things out a little." I felt heat creep up my spine. Not from shame, no, not that, from betrayal. "Let me get this straight," I said, pacing slowly into the circle. "You want me to give up half of what I earn every month to this collective?" Lorna smiled. "It's not giving up. It's contributing. You've benefited from being part of this family. This is your way of giving back." "Giving back?" I said, my voice dropping. "Didn't I pay for Darian's car note last month? Didn't I cover your dental surgery, Carol?" Lorna's eyes narrowed, just slightly. "Don't be dramatic, sweetheart." I looked around the circle again. "Are the rest of you contributing too?" Callan shrugged. "I don't make enough." Uncle Bill avoided my eyes completely, and Darian, he just stared at the floor. "So I'm the only one expected to fund the family because I have a decent job?" I asked, voice steady now. "That's what this is?" "It's just for a while," Darian mumbled, "until things stabilize." No one else spoke. I took a breath, I let it out slowly, and then I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. "Well," I said, reaching for my coat, "if my salary is community property, then I suppose it's only fair that I stop earning it." Gasps followed me like shadows. Lorna stood up, voice shaking now. "You wouldn't." I turned around at the door. "Watch me." I left. The air outside bit into my skin, but it was the first real thing I'd felt all night. I walked to my car slowly. No one followed, no apologies, no backpedaling, and that told me everything. They hadn't said those things in a moment of misjudgment. This wasn't a one-time conversation. They'd planned it, plotted it. Darian had let me walk in blind while they set the terms, like I was some kind of walking checkbook they were ready to cash. But I'm not a fool. I'm a woman who has worked every day since she was 16. I'm someone who clawed her way out of debt, who paid for her own college, who never asked anyone for a dime. I'm not about to let them turn me into their ATM, not without a fight. Back in my car, I didn't scream, didn't cry. I gripped the steering wheel, stared at the dashboard until my knuckles whitened. They really thought I wouldn't fight back, I whispered. They'd just made the biggest mistake of their lives. They really thought I wouldn't fight back. But here's the thing about me. I don't scream when I'm cornered. I study, I collect, I build. The morning after that meeting, I woke up in complete silence. No texts, no missed calls, not even one of those hollow apologies Darian used to send when he knew I was angry, but hoped to avoid a real conversation. He didn't come home. I stretched across our bed, the bed I paid for, and stared at the ceiling for a few seconds, letting the quiet settle. Then I reached over for my laptop and pulled it onto my stomach. I figured I'd check emails before brushing my teeth, just something to pull me out of the weight sitting on my chest. I opened my inbox, clicked over to my pay stub, and that's when I saw it. The account number on my direct deposit slip wasn't mine. I froze. I blinked, reloaded the page, then double-checked the routing info against my bank records. Nope. This wasn't an update I made. I tried to steady my breathing, but the stillness in the room began to feel sinister. There are moments in life when your stomach knows the truth before your brain catches up. That was one of them. I reached for my phone, dialed human resources at work. I kept my voice calm. Hi, this is Marla Reyes. I just reviewed my deposit information, and it looks like the bank account listed has changed. Can you tell me when that update happened? A short pause, then, looks like that change was submitted last week, through the employee portal. I hadn't logged into that portal in over a month. Can you tell me the name on the account? I asked, trying to sound casual. I'm afraid I can't provide that, ma'am, but I'd recommend speaking with payroll and updating your password immediately. I thanked her and hung up. The rage didn't come right away. It was slow and silent, like a flood sneaking under a doorframe. I opened my browser and took screenshots of everything. Deposit history, bank info, timestamp. Then I created a folder on my desktop. If I disappear. I didn't cry. I didn't call Darian. I didn't even text him. Instead, I backed up every screenshot to a secure cloud folder, emailed it to myself from 2 different accounts, then changed my work portal login credentials. I sat still for a moment after that, just watching the morning sun crawl across the hardwood floor. And I knew exactly what this was. Not a mistake, not a glitch, a setup, and not just from him. Later that afternoon, a knock came at the door. It wasn't frantic or polite. It was firm, measured, like someone was there on a mission. I opened it cautiously. A courier stood there holding an envelope with a red seal and my name printed in handwriting I recognized instantly. Lorna. He nodded and handed it to me without a word. Back inside, I sat at the kitchen counter, tore open the envelope, and unfolded the letter. The first thing I noticed, it was written on fake legal stationery. Gold trim, some invented seal watermark, and bold black text. Marla Reyes, as a respected member of the Cade family, and in accordance with our internal community responsibility model, you are hereby requested to voluntarily allocate 50% of your monthly income to the shared family trust. This aligns with your marital obligations and maintains harmony within our structure. Please submit documentation of your compliance no later than the 5th of next month. With respect, Lorna Cade. It was laughable, except it wasn't. She really believed she could mask a power grab under the guise of respect. I reread the letter 3 times. Then I folded it neatly, slipped it into a plastic document sleeve, and slid it into the same folder where the screenshots were stored. Let them keep thinking I'm predictable. Let them keep underestimating me. Because I was documenting everything now. After dinner, I barely touched the leftover lasagna from the night before. I sat down at the dining table and pulled out a notebook. the same one I used for grocery lists and weekend plans. I opened to a clean page and wrote at the top in all caps, "The truth they don't want me to say." And then I started listing, paid the full deposit on the apartment, covered every utility bill since January, paid for Darian's physical therapy, bought groceries weekly, paid Lorna's copay at the dentist. It went on and on. I stopped when I got to the 12th bullet point, 12 expenses, all on me, not a dime reimbursed, not even a thank you. I set my pen down and leaned back. My thoughts drifted to the time Darian forgot to pay the electric bill, twice. Both times I covered it without hesitation. I told myself, he's just overwhelmed. And Lorna? The day she told me, "You don't need savings when you've got family like us." I laughed, thinking it was a compliment. Now it felt like a warning. None of this was spontaneous. This was orchestrated. I went to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and returned to my notebook. At the bottom of the page, in letters so sharp they nearly ripped the paper, I wrote, "This isn't a marriage. This is a syndicate." And I just became the whistleblower they didn't expect. The sun had already shifted from its soft morning light to a harsher midday glare by the time I finally sat down at the dining table. I had spent most of the morning pacing, drinking too much coffee, and checking my phone despite telling myself not to. I wasn't waiting for Darian's message. I knew it wouldn't come. But maybe I was checking to make sure he hadn't tried to erase his tracks. The apartment was too quiet. No television, no podcast in the background, just me, my laptop, and a box of receipts I kept in a drawer under the bar cart. I opened Excel. Not a new browser tab, no, a fresh spreadsheet, the kind with empty cells staring back at me, daring me to make sense of everything that had been taken from me. First column, date. Second, description. Third, amount. Fourth, receipt number, if applicable. Fifth, paid by me. It started simply. Rent for January, $1,850. February, same. March, same. Then it was the electric bill, Wi-Fi, groceries, car insurance, gas, repairs, medical bills, gifts for birthdays that weren't mine, family dinners where I picked up the tab because it's easier if you just put it on your card. I pulled out old receipts from drawers, from emails, from the back of my closet. A year's worth of financial evidence. By the time I hit line 73, I was exhausted, but not finished. I added every dollar, down to the last cent. I cross-referenced with bank statements, took photos of the physical receipts, and saved them all into a folder titled Marla's Ledger, Year 1. When the total finally loaded at the bottom of the spreadsheet, my stomach turned. $86,420.778. That was how much I'd spent in 12 months. On them. Not a dime reimbursed. Not once did anyone say thank you. I leaned back in the chair and closed my eyes. What hit me harder than the number itself was the memory of Darian, sitting across from me last fall, scoffing when I mentioned putting more into savings. "You're always obsessed with money," he said, mid-bite of takeout I paid for. "You act like everything has to be a ledger," he added. "You sound like my mom when she used to make us keep track of every penny," he mumbled while scrolling his phone. And I, like the fool I was then, had smiled. "I just like knowing where it's going," I'd told him. He didn't even look up. Then there was Lorna, waving off my color-coded budget spreadsheet with a laugh. "This looks like something a control freak would make. Honestly, sweetheart, relationships need trust, not tally marks." She said that right before asking if I could help cover Callan's urgent dental work. I remembered the dinners, the endless rotation of Sunday gatherings at Lorna's house where I was expected to bring dessert and wine and sometimes the main dish, too. "It's just easier this way," someone would always say. Of course it was easier. I made it easier. I covered everything so they didn't have to. The only thing I couldn't cover was their decency. A knock on the door pulled me out of the spiral. It was mid-afternoon now. I checked the peephole before opening it a crack. Isla stood there, her coat zipped up to her chin, holding a paper bag from the bakery 2 blocks over. "I brought cinnamon rolls," she said, her tone quiet. "You didn't answer my text, so I figured I'd show up." I opened the door wider. "Come in." She stepped inside and immediately scanned the room. You okay? I gestured to the table. You ever done forensic accounting on your own marriage? Isla's eyebrows lifted. I guess today's not the day for small talk. We sat. She handed me the bag, and I pulled out one of the pastries, though I didn't really want it. She didn't press, just sat with me. After a few minutes, she asked, Are you going to tell me what's going on, or should I start guessing? I hesitated. I didn't want to unload everything on her, not yet, not while it was still unfolding like a slow-motion train wreck. There's some stuff happening, I said, but I'm handling it. Isla didn't smile. She didn't nod. She just looked at me for a long moment, then said softly, You've always carried more than your share. And just like that, I nearly broke. But I didn't. All because I couldn't afford to. I'm fine, I said, and it wasn't true. But it didn't matter. Isla hugged me before she left. She didn't ask anything else. After she was gone, I went back to my laptop. I renamed the file, Exhibit A, in case they deny. Then I saved it 3 times, once to my desktop, once to a secure cloud, and once to an encrypted USB I kept in my jewelry box. This wasn't about emotion anymore. It was documentation. I had spent a year trying to build a family with people who only wanted to build a trap. And if they thought I'd cry, they were about to learn I built a case instead. When I locked the door that night, I didn't expect the next morning to unfold the way it did. I'd gone to bed later than usual, staring at the glow of my laptop long after midnight. I'd spent too much time combing through bank records, double-checking account transfers, and rereading that absurd letter Lorna had sent. Every line of it had burrowed into me like a splinter. Even after I shut the computer, I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling, the silence thick with all the arguments I hadn't voiced, and all the moves I still had yet to make. Sleep came, but it was thin and restless. When I woke, it was to a surprising stillness. Not the sharp kind of silence that presses against your ribs, but something softer. For the first time in days, my mind felt clear. The morning light was dim, filtered through the gray Portland clouds, but it carried a hint of promise. I moved through the kitchen at an unhurried pace, making oatmeal, setting the kettle for tea. Not coffee. Coffee was for endurance, for survival. Tea was different. Tea let me breathe. I opened the blinds and let the soft light filter in. For 11 minutes, it felt like peace. Then came the sound, metal fumbling against metal. The unmistakable scrape of keys forced into a lock. The old rhythm of entry, except this time, the lock didn't turn. Then, pounding. Marla! His voice carried through the door, muffled, unmistakable, already rising with anger. What the hell? Are you seriously locking me out of my own house? I didn't flinch. I set my bowl in the sink, dried my hands on a dish towel, and walked to the door. My breath was steady, though I could feel my pulse thrumming in my wrists. I opened it just enough to see his face. Darian, red-cheeked, hair sticking out like he hadn't slept, eyes wild with indignation. I met his gaze without blinking. Whose name is on the lease? He blinked. No answer. Whose name is on every bill, every receipt? I asked, the words deliberate, clipped. I'll wait. His jaw tightened, the familiar mask of defensiveness snapping into place. That's not the point. We live here together. You can't just— I can, I said evenly. And I did. He tried to push the door, testing the weight of my body behind it. Reflexively, I shoved back with my shoulder, the wood slamming shut between us. On the other side, his voice rose, bouncing against the hallway walls. You're being ridiculous. You're blowing this way out of proportion. I pulled out my phone, typed a single sentence, and hit send. Respect my space, or you'll regret it. I turned the deadbolt again. His fists pounded twice more, but the sound was weaker now, less force than frustration. Through the peephole, I watched him pace, muttering words I couldn't make out. Then, finally, I heard the ding of the elevator, saw his shoulders slump as he stepped inside. Only then did I exhale. I sank onto the armrest of the couch, hands trembling, not with fear, but with something sharper. The recognition that this was real now. The first boundary had been drawn, visible and undeniable. For years, Darian had come and gone as he pleased. My apartment had been his revolving door, his crash pad, his excuse to avoid accountability. He waltzed in with half-made promises and shallow apologies, treating my sanctuary as though it were an extension of his whims. Not anymore. I'd never locked him out before. I'd never had to. But this wasn't about marriage anymore. This wasn't about compromise or counseling or who got which corner of the bed. This was about survival. I stood and crossed to the window, rolling my shoulders back, trying to shake the tension. My phone buzzed in my hand. A new notification. Not from him. From an unfamiliar number. I opened it. You should talk to him. He's spiraling. It was signed, implicitly, by the sender. Callan. His brother. The sibling who had always managed to slip through family drama unscathed, never taking sides, always benefiting from the outcome without getting his hands dirty. I stared at the words, then pressed the forward button. I sent it straight to my evidence folder, where I kept every scrap of proof, every message, every record. No reply, no response, just filed it away. That evening, I sat at my desk and began a new kind of work, the kind that didn't show up in court yet, but would matter all the same. I opened my bank account, created a new checking account at a different institution, and rerouted my direct deposit. One by one, I changed passwords: email, insurance, cloud storage, work portals. Anything Darian had once accessed was scrubbed clean. I made a list of every service he might still have his fingerprints on. Spotify, Netflix, the grocery delivery app, even the stupid automatic pet food subscription for the cat I cared for alone. Every item was checked, secured, reclaimed. The locks on the door had been the beginning. Now came the rest. I called HR at work, insisting they confirm the new deposit routing. Twice. I wasn't leaving even a penny in reach of him. I ordered new locks for my locker at the gym, for my desk drawer at the office. Small steps, but ones that reinforced the message. There was no door left open for him. By the time the sun dipped below the treetops, I'd spent the entire day reclaiming autonomy, one click, one password, one pin at a time. I picked up my journal. The same journal Darian had once mocked, calling it the complaint book, as though documenting pain was weakness. I flipped to a blank page, uncapped my pen, and wrote, "If this is war, I've only just chosen my armor." I underlined it twice. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't bravado. It was a promise. To myself. He thought I'd crumble. He thought I'd cry, beg, ask for a truce. He thought I'd open the door again because I was emotional. But I wasn't that woman anymore. He wanted access. I gave him a boundary instead. He wanted access. I gave him a boundary instead. The next morning, the light outside barely shifted from gray to a dull silver when my phone buzzed against the kitchen counter. I was halfway through a slice of toast, staring out the window, letting the quiet sink in. I glanced at the screen. A message from an unfamiliar number. Thought you should see this. There was no greeting, no context, but attached to the message was a screenshot. I tapped it open, and my eyes scanned the lines like muscle memory. The email was from Darian, sent just 2 nights ago. "She's gonna break soon," he wrote. "When we divorce, I'll get 40%. She makes too much to walk away. No hesitation. No shame." There was nothing clever in it, just cruelty dressed up as strategy. My stomach didn't twist. My hands didn't shake. I didn't even blink. I tapped the back arrow, saved the screenshot, then opened my evidence folder and dropped it in. I created a subfolder titled Intent to Defraud, Internal. I read the message again, then scrolled to check the sender. Callan, Darian's brother. Of course, I should have known he'd be the one to spill first. Callan was always the quiet observer, the one who avoided conflict until it became inconvenient to stay neutral. Maybe he felt guilty. Maybe he just didn't want to be dragged down with the rest of them. I typed a simple reply. "Thanks. Keep anything else you find." I didn't bother asking why he sent it. His silence had always served someone, until now. I opened my laptop and created a new document titled Legal Timeline. Date of family meeting, noted. Date of HR confirmation about salary reroute, logged. Date of Lorna's fake legal letter, archived. Now, Darian's email confession, tagged, time-stamped, and categorized. I wasn't building a story. I was assembling a case. The person they thought I was? She cried when bills got too high. She apologized for being too particular about money. She covered for everyone else's laziness and called it love. But that woman didn't live here anymore. I scrolled through the document and highlighted key terms: financial abuse, premeditated fraud, manipulation through marriage. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. It was theft. A few minutes passed before I reopened the email and read the line again. She makes too much to walk away. I laughed quietly. It wasn't even bitterness, just disbelief. That was his plan? Marry me, wear me down, wait for me to quit resisting, and then leave with a cut of my earnings. That's not marriage. That's a scam. I stared at my wedding ring still resting in the small trinket dish on the windowsill. For a moment, I considered tossing it. But I didn't. Not yet. It was evidence now. I leaned back in the chair, thoughts drifting back to the vows, his trembling hand when he slid the ring onto my finger. The words he whispered later that night. I've never felt this sure about anything. Lies. All of it. I thought about how he always said, "You're lucky I'm not like other guys. I don't cheat. I don't drink. I don't hit." As if the bare minimum of decency was a gift I was supposed to be grateful for. As if not being abusive made him extraordinary. As if slowly bleeding someone dry financially wasn't abuse. As if I was supposed to look at my empty savings and smile, just because he didn't throw a fist. I pushed the chair back and stood up. It was time to make it official. I opened my email and typed a message to Darian. Effective immediately, all communication related to our marriage or living arrangement must go through legal representation. Do not contact me directly. I added my attorney friend's address, BCC'd my backup account, and hit send. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel rage, just clean. It was like scrubbing a dirty floor and finally seeing the original color of the tile. 2 minutes later, I heard a ding, his reply. "What the hell is this? You're going legal now. Seriously? I thought we were just having a rough patch. Why are you blowing things up?" I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my journal and wrote, "He thought I'd fold under pressure. But I'm not paper. I'm stone." The rest of the day passed in focused silence. I drafted more documentation, categorized each piece, made backup copies. By late afternoon, I poured myself a glass of lemon water and sat down on the couch with the blinds open. Outside, I watched a young couple walking their dog. They looked happy, effortless. The kind of love I used to dream about. But love isn't about ease. Love is about respect, about equity, about not having to build a defense file against the person who shares your bed. The truth was ugly. But it was mine now. He used to think I was emotional. Now he's about to meet the version of me who isn't. And then, his mother did the one thing that proved they were never going to stop. By Thursday morning, I was back into my regular work-from-office rotation. I needed the structure. There's something about hearing keyboards clatter, printers hum, and coworkers mumble over coffee that helped keep me grounded. Predictable routines felt like protection, like armor that held chaos at bay. I'd just taken the elevator up, passed the front desk with a polite nod to the receptionist, and stepped through the glass double doors of our firm when I saw her. Lorna, standing in the middle of the lobby like she was waiting to be introduced at a press conference. Arms folded, lips tight, spine stiff as a board. I stopped walking. She hadn't noticed me yet. She was too busy arguing with security. "She's in there," Lorna snapped, voice sharp and too loud for the space. "And she thinks she can destroy this family and get away with it. Not a chance." The security guard, a man in his 50s with kind eyes, gently motioned for her to lower her voice. "Ma'am, this is a professional environment. If you have personal matters, I suggest you handle them elsewhere." "She's tearing the family apart," Lorna barked. "She's turning my son against me." I walked forward, deliberate, silent, controlled. When she turned and saw me, her face twitched, but she didn't stop. "You should be ashamed," she hissed. "Coming here, acting like you're some innocent victim while stabbing your husband in the back. How dare you?" I didn't respond. Not with words. I reached into my bag, pulled out my phone, and looked the security guard dead in the eye. "Please document this interaction. I'll need a copy for my legal team." He nodded, stepped to the side, and reached for the incident form on his clipboard. Lorna blinked. Her lips parted like she had something else to scream, but instead, she turned and marched out of the building without another word. No apology, no shame, just the click of her heels fading into the echo of her own rage. I walked to my desk like nothing happened. I booted up my computer, poured myself a glass of water from the break room, and got to work. By noon, I'd already finished 2 reports and reviewed a vendor contract. I was halfway through a budget forecast when Michelle, our operations manager, leaned into my office doorway with a look. "I saw it," she said. I raised an eyebrow. "Saw what?" "The video," she whispered. "Brett filmed it from behind the pillar." "Of course." Brett, the intern who never missed a moment of drama if it happened within 30 feet of a smartphone. "Was I wearing anything embarrassing?" I asked dryly. Michelle chuckled. "You looked like a CEO handing down orders in court." Lorna looked unhinged. I nodded once. "Good. That's what I was aiming for." She smiled. "Well, if you ever need someone to back you up in HR, let me know." I didn't. But it was nice to be offered. After work, I stopped by the grocery store, picked up some soup and frozen meals, and returned home. I didn't even bother changing out of my work clothes. I opened my laptop and checked my personal inbox. One new message, from Odessa. Subject line, "You're gonna want to sit down before reading this." I opened it. Inside was a PDF attachment titled, "Financial Agreement, Cade Household." The moment I opened it, my jaw clenched. The document was dated 3 months before I married Darian. It was formatted like a legal contract, with formal headings, clauses, and a section titled Family Financial Structure and Marital Contribution Expectations. In that section, my name was listed, in full, Marla Ann Reyes. Under the clause, Designated Financial Caretaker, responsibility for managing all household expenses, including extended family contributions for a minimum of 60 months. 60 months, 5 years. I scrolled further. At the bottom of the page was my signature, but it wasn't mine. The curve of the M was wrong. The way the R looped was all off. It looked like someone had copied it from a birthday card and pasted it into a legal form. I called Odessa. She picked up on the second ring. "You got it?" "Yep," I said. "Was this submitted anywhere?" "No, but it was prepared. I pulled it from a shared Google Drive that Darian forgot to lock down." "So they planned this," I whispered. "Before the wedding." "They had this ready." Odessa's voice was calm but heavy. "They weren't marrying you. They were recruiting you. For funding." I didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't throw anything. Instead, I opened a new Google Doc and typed the title in bold. Intent to Sue, Draft 1. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was legacy. This was making sure they never did this to anyone else. They called it family. I called it fraud. I typed out the initial outline. Grounds, financial deception, fraud, identity misuse, emotional coercion. When I reached the bottom of the page, I paused and whispered aloud to myself, "They don't want a daughter-in-law. They want a bank account that doesn't talk back." I saved the document, backed it up, closed the lid of the laptop, and went to the kitchen. The fight was here, and I was done asking for permission. They forged my signature, but what they really did was forge my resolve. And when they tried to erase me from the family, they left behind their biggest mistake. 2 mornings after Odessa sent me the forged contract, I walked into the courthouse downtown with a copy of it in a sealed envelope, tucked under my arm like a peace offering I'd never give. The sky was heavy that day, the kind of gray Portland keeps in reserve for the particularly bitter ones. My attorney, Lisa, met me at the steps. She had the kind of calm you only earn after 20 years of dealing with entitled husbands and overconfident opposing counsel. She didn't smile, and neither did I. "This is the document?" she asked once we were inside. I handed it to her without a word. We stepped up to the filing window, prepared to submit an affidavit regarding financial deception and coercion based on the forged agreement. The clerk, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes but a sharp gaze, began typing into her terminal. "Do you have any related records already on file?" Lisa asked. The woman nodded, clicked a few times, and then paused. "There's a probate record under the Cade family, a modification submitted 9 months ago." Lisa leaned in. "Inheritance?" The clerk nodded again. "Originally listed a Marla Reyes as one of the secondary beneficiaries. That name's no longer present in the amended version." I didn't even blink. Lisa asked for a printed copy. When it came out, she studied it silently. "This signature is different," she muttered, tapping the corner. "And the dates are sloppy." I looked over her shoulder. Darian's cousin's name had replaced mine. I'd been erased, not argued with, not negotiated out of, just scrubbed. "They really think you won't fight this?" Lisa asked me, eyebrows raised. "Oh, I'm counting on them thinking that," I said quietly. Back at her office that afternoon, we compared the inheritance document with the forged financial caretaker contract. The inconsistencies weren't just obvious, they were amateur. The signature didn't match mine, and the contract was dated months before Darian and I had even signed our marriage license. It was insult on top of betrayal. I wasn't just excluded from their family. I was monetized, used, and discarded like a department store membership card. I wasn't shocked anymore. I was focused. Lisa took a breath. "We're not just suing now," she said, voice calm but steely. "We're going public." It took me 2 more days to finish what I called my personal financial reckoning. Every receipt, every transfer, every dollar spent on the Cade name or lifestyle. From the rent I paid alone for 12 months to the $150 emergency vet bill for Lorna's dog when she didn't want to cancel her manicure. From the time I bought the Thanksgiving groceries because family meals should come from the heart, to the monthly health premiums I added Darian onto just until he got on his feet. I had the totals in a color-coded spreadsheet: rent and utilities, $20,200, groceries and dining, $14,750 medical and insurance, $9,400 gifts, trips, holidays, $11,950 family emergencies, $4,250 miscellaneous expenses, cleaning services, car repairs, etc. $24,550 final sum, $86,050, 87 cents, not a penny reimbursed. I created a PDF, wrote a simple statement at the top. Since no one said thank you, let the court do it. I sent it to Lisa. I sent a copy to the courthouse. And because I felt like making a point, I CC'd Darian. He called within 10 minutes. I didn't answer. Instead, I watched as the voicemail popped up. "You're ruining everything," he shouted through the static. "You're blowing this way out of proportion. This is supposed to be between us. What the hell is wrong with you?" Delete. Seconds later, a text from Lorna. "This is disgraceful. We trusted you. You're tearing our family apart. Block." I'd heard enough. I didn't need to hear their excuses or desperate spins. They thought they could erase me, not realizing I was already carving out space for something better. Lisa called that night. "Documents submitted. The court accepted the preliminary complaint. I've flagged it as financial fraud and coercion. We'll likely get a hearing date by the end of the month." I nodded, though she couldn't see me. "Thank you." She paused. "You okay?" "I'm ready," I said. Because I was. I didn't feel nerves, or fear, or even sadness anymore. I felt the sharp steadiness of someone who has nothing left to lose and too much truth to ignore. I wasn't moving out of grief. I was moving with purpose. Let them talk, let them scramble, let them wonder when I turned from the quiet wife into the woman who subpoenaed their lies. They erased me from their family tree, so I planted a new one, with legal roots. By the time the summons arrived, it was already too late for apologies, too late for them to feign regret, to hide behind half-hearted excuses or polished family pleasantries. The papers were in motion, and for once, so was the system. Finally, in my direction. I didn't go to the courthouse that morning to make a scene. I didn't show up to shout or gloat or parade a victory. I went for one reason only: to witness it become official with my own eyes. After years of being told to sit quietly, to endure, to work it out privately, I needed to see what it looked like when truth stopped being an invisible weight on my shoulders and started becoming ink on paper. The civil clerk's office was tucked into a long beige hallway, the kind built to remind you of order and bureaucracy. I stood to the side near a vending machine, holding a flimsy paper cup of lukewarm coffee that tasted faintly of cardboard. People shuffled in and out, their footsteps echoing against the tile. I blended into the background, calm, watchful. My lawsuit had already been filed the week before, tucked into a manila envelope, stamped and sealed by clerks who processed it without knowing the years of manipulation behind every page. Today wasn't about paperwork. Today was about timing. I knew exactly when the process server would arrive to hand-deliver the summons to Lorna and Darian. And sure enough, 20 minutes later, I saw it unfold. The server approached Lorna first, near the parking lot entrance. She was dressed, as always, in that polished veneer she wore like armor, bright scarf, tailored jacket, lips pressed into a smile that never touched her eyes. When the server spoke her name aloud, her mouth twisted. She took the envelope like he had handed her a dead rat. "This is a joke," she snapped, loud enough for passers-by to hear. "A sick personal attack." The server didn't flinch. He turned instead to Darian, who had just pulled into the lot. Darian stepped out of his car as his name was called, the sound hanging in the air like a gavel strike. His face went pale. I didn't wait for them to scan the crowd. I turned, walking away, my shoes clicking softly against the floor. They didn't need to see me. They didn't need my words. The summons in their hands spoke louder than I ever could. Later that afternoon, I sat across from Lisa in her office. The space smelled faintly of old paper and coffee, lawyer air. She read through the lawsuit summary again, her voice even but edged with conviction. "Forgery of legal documents," she recited. "Identity theft, coercive financial manipulation, emotional abuse through sustained financial dependency." Then she looked up, her eyes steady on mine. "This isn't just divorce, Marla. It's dismantling a fraud ring." Her words landed like a stone in water. Heavy, rippling outward. Good, I thought. That's exactly what I wanted. Because this wasn't only about me anymore. It was about the women like me. Women who are told to trust, to be patient, to keep the peace, while being quietly stripped of every ounce of autonomy in the name of loyalty and love. I didn't want revenge, I wanted precedent. That weekend, the backlash began. Mutual friends, though in truth they were always Lorna's friends, started retreating. One unfriended me on Facebook without a word. Another sent a message long enough to fill a page, framing the lawsuit as sad and unfortunate, as though my fight for justice was merely bad manners. I didn't respond. Meanwhile, Lorna launched a full smear campaign. She worked the phones like a politician on election night, calling family, friends, and community acquaintances, weaving her narrative of betrayal. Word filtered back through Callan. She was blaming my emotional instability for everything, painting me as the fragile, bitter ex. Darian, true to form, tried to straddle the middle. One evening I came home to a voicemail, his voice oddly calm. "Let's talk. This doesn't have to be a war. We can settle this quietly. You don't have to go after Mom." I listened once, then forwarded the recording to Lisa. Later that week, I met Callan for coffee at a small cafe with chipped tabletops and mismatched mugs. We sat outside, the spring air cool against our jackets. "I'm not proud of what's happened," he said carefully, fingers tracing the rim of his cup. "But I have to say, you broke the chain." I studied him. "You all knew what was happening." He didn't argue. Just nodded, his eyes fixed on the coffee he hadn't touched. "We did. We just didn't want to rock the boat. Lorna's always had control, even when we were kids. She could make you feel like the sun rose because of her and crush you in the next breath." I didn't respond. Because what was there left to say? Back home, Lisa called with an update. "The judge offered a pre-hearing settlement," she told me. "Lorna pays a fine and issues a public apology. We collect damages." "And?" I asked. She refused. Of course she did. So the case escalated to a full fraud hearing. Word spread quickly. Court calendars aren't private. Soon, whispers began trickling through community boards and neighborhood circles. Is that the same Lorna who runs the craft fair? The one who used to teach at the school? She's getting sued for what? Her carefully curated persona, God-fearing, family-first, community darling, began to crack. Invitations she once flaunted started to dry up. One woman from her garden club even sent me an email. "I believe you. I'm sorry I enabled her for so long." Public perception wasn't the reason I filed the suit, but I won't lie, it was satisfying to watch her web of illusions begin to unravel. Then came Darian's last attempt. A text, short and stripped of emotion. "We can still fix this. Please." 2 words, calculated. Not regret, not love, just bargaining. I didn't hesitate. I replied with 2 of my own. Court date. Justice wasn't coming. I carried it with me. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the fragile one, the quiet one, the woman begging to be believed. I felt like the storm. Even when the case closed, something in me remained wide open, as if the courtroom doors had shut, but left a window in my chest unlatched. I didn't cheer when the judge delivered the decision. I didn't smile. I didn't even cry. My whole body seemed to understand before my mind did. This wasn't a moment for triumph. It was a moment for release. And so I simply exhaled. The ruling was clear. Lorna was fined. The fraud proven beyond question. The forged signatures, the predatory financial structures, the years of calculated manipulation, all of it was documented, entered into the record, stamped and sealed as fact. Darian lost his claim to spousal support. The judge's words echoed in the high-ceilinged chamber. His contributions to the marriage were economically negligible. The evidence demonstrates a consistent pattern of intentional financial exploitation. Lisa, my attorney, clasped my hand outside the courtroom. Her smile was weary but proud. "Your documentation," she said, "is going to be used as a case study in our office. It's rare, Marla, rare to see someone this thorough before the damage becomes irreversible." I nodded. I thanked her. But inside, I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. The kind of tired that doesn't go away with sleep. The kind of tired that lives in your bones, a quiet echo of every fight you never wanted to fight but were forced to anyway. I hadn't just endured a battle, I had lived through a war I never asked for. That weekend, I began to pack. Not with the urgency of escape, but with a steady calm. My lease was up, and I knew I couldn't take that apartment into the next chapter of my life. Its walls held too many shadows. Too many echoes of phone calls, arguments, paperwork stacked like barricades. I found a 1-bedroom near the Willamette River. Nothing luxurious, just clean walls, sturdy floors, and sunlight that streamed through the window like it was trying to mean something. A place where silence didn't feel sharp, but soft. I unpacked slowly, deliberately. No rush, no pressure. I didn't hang pictures. I didn't rush to decorate. I let the boxes breathe with me, opening them only when I felt ready. On my second night there, I stumbled across something I hadn't seen in years. My mother's journal. It had slipped into a box with old tax forms and a bag of clothes I didn't even recognize as mine anymore. I sat cross-legged on the hardwood floor, the journal heavy in my hands, and flipped to the last entry she had written before she died. "You'll know it's right when your silence feels like power." I read the sentence twice, then again. My throat tightened, and tears came. Not the hot tears of rage or grief, but something gentler, recognition. For so long, silence had been the prison I accepted, the cost I thought I had to pay for love, for belonging, for safety. But here, in this moment, my silence was different. My silence was mine, and it was enough. A few days later, a text lit up my phone. "Callan, just one line. You were right. All of us knew it. Only you acted." I stared at it. I didn't reply. Some words don't need answers. Not long after, Isla stopped by. She carried hibiscus tea, her favorite, not mine, and settled into my new sofa like she had been doing it her whole life. We sat for a while in comfortable quiet, sipping the deep red liquid. Then she said softly, "I'm proud of you. I hope you never lose that edge, but I also hope one day you won't need it anymore." Her words didn't sting. They didn't demand anything from me. They were a wish. And for the first time in a long time, I received someone's wish without shrinking. Later that week, I walked along the river, the water a restless companion under the bridge. The breeze carried Portland's spring promise, a damp chill, always hinting at warmth but never quite delivering. I leaned on the railing and let my mind wander. I didn't replay the courtroom. I didn't rehearse the betrayals or the shouting. Instead, I thought of the woman I used to be, the one who said, "Sure, I can cover this month," while rearranging her own budget. The one who sat quiet at dinner tables while people mocked Marla's little spreadsheets. The one who believed silence was the price of love. I still hurt. Not because I missed Darian. I didn't. I hurt because I had to fight so hard to guard something that should have been sacred without effort. My peace. And peace, I learned, is not the same as freedom. Freedom can be given. Peace must be earned, bought, reclaimed. And its price is higher than anyone warns you. That night, I sat at my new desk with a blank piece of paper. No court letterhead, no formal formatting, just my handwriting. Not a note for Lorna, not for Darian, for me. You are no longer responsible for anyone's comfort but your own. You can say no. You don't owe silence in exchange for someone else's calm. You are allowed to stop trying to fix what never wanted to be whole. I read the words aloud. They sounded steady, true. Then I walked onto the patio with a small ceramic bowl. I lit a match, set the corner of the paper aflame, and watched quietly as it curled into ash. I didn't make a ceremony of it. I didn't whisper a spell or rehearse a speech. I simply let the smoke drift upward, curling like a ribbon of release, until it vanished into the night air. Back inside, I picked up a watering can and stepped over the last unopened moving box. On the windowsill sat a small plant, leaves already reaching stubbornly toward the light. I tipped the can gently, giving it what it needed. Then I poured myself a glass of water. I drank it slowly, savoring the taste of something simple, grounding, and real. Quiet, grounded. Alone, but not lonely. And not broken. Not every ending comes with applause. Not every ending is loud. Some endings arrive quietly, beautifully, like the moment a storm passes, not with fanfare, but with the stillness of survival. And that is more than enough. Some endings don't come with fireworks. They come with boundaries, silence, and peace you had to earn the hard way. If you've ever felt like you were giving too much, staying too long, or carrying what was never yours to hold, maybe this story was meant for you. What would you have done in Marla's place? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more real-life revenge stories that speak truth to power, one quiet victory at a time.